The movie begins with an intense scene in the midst of the Iraq War, where Chris is positioned on a rooftop, scanning the streets below through the scope of his rifle. He spots a suspicious figure, a woman and a child, walking toward a group of Marines. The woman hands the child an object, which Chris quickly identifies as a grenade. The tension builds as Chris is faced with a life or death decision: take the shot and potentially save the Marines, or hesitate and risk their lives. Just as he's about to pull the trigger, he reminiscences back to his childhood in Texas, offering insight into his upbringing. A young Chris is seen hunting with his father, who instills in him a strong sense of responsibility and the importance of protecting others. These moments highlight the values that shape Chris into the man he becomes. His father's teachings are reinforced during a family dinner, where he delivers a memorable speech about 3 types of people in the world: sheep, wolves, and sheepdogs. He tells Chris and his brother that they are to be sheepdogs, protectors of the weak. A couple of years later, Chris is now a young adult, pursuing a career as a cowboy. However, after seeing news coverage of terrorist attacks against Americans, Chris feels a deep sense of duty to serve his country. He enlists in the Navy and endures the grueling training required to become a SEAL. A few weeks after completing his SEAL training, Chris returns home. He reconnects with his friends, and they go to a local bar. The atmosphere is lively, filled with laughter, music, and the camaraderie of old friendships. Chris, though naturally reserved, finds himself loosening up as the night goes on. Amid the crowd, his eyes land on Taya, a confident and striking woman. Chris strikes up a conversation. Taya, however, is not easily impressed. She's quick to tease him about his SEAL background, making it clear she's not one to swoon over a uniform. Chris, instead of being deterred, matches her wit with his own quiet charm. He doesn't boast or try to impress her; instead, he listens and engages her in a genuine way. Their conversation flows naturally, filled with playful banter that leaves both of them smiling. By the end of the evening, Chris has won her over enough to exchange numbers, setting the stage for a deeper connection. Over the next few weeks, Chris and Taya begin spending more time together. Their dates are simple but meaningful, enjoying the carnival and having long conversations where they share their hopes, fears, and dreams. Chris is captivated by Taya's strength and honesty, while she is drawn to his steadiness and sense of purpose. Chris asks Taya if she ever wants children. She pauses, then admits she does, but only when the time feels right. Chris listens intently, appreciating her thoughtful approach to life. It's clear to both of them that their relationship is becoming serious, and they're beginning to imagine a future together. One morning, their budding happiness is shattered by the news of the 9/11 attacks. The television broadcasts horrific images of planes crashing into the Twin Towers, smoke billowing into the sky, and people fleeing in terror. Chris watches in stunned silence, his heart heavy with grief and anger. The magnitude of the tragedy ignites something deep within him, a fierce determination to protect his country and ensure that such an attack never happens again. A few weeks later, Chris and Taya are married in a beautiful outdoor ceremony surrounded by their closest friends and family. The day is filled with laughter, tears, and heartfelt vows. Taya looks radiant in her wedding dress, and Chris, though not one to show much emotion, can't hide the pride and love in his eyes. Taya is acutely aware that Chris's dedication to his country will always be a part of their lives, and she vows to support him, even as her heart aches at the thought of his future deployments. Just days after their wedding, Chris receives orders to deploy to Iraq. The war has intensified, and his skills as a sniper are urgently needed. As they arrive in Iraq, the reality of war hits him immediately. His team is tasked with providing overwatch for a convoy of Marines, and Chris takes his position on a rooftop. Through the scope of his rifle, he scans the streets below, his senses heightened and his mind focused. Suddenly, he spots movement. A young boy emerges from a building, clutching something in his hands. Chris's heart sinks as he realizes it's a grenade. The boy is heading straight for the convoy, and Chris knows he has only seconds to act. He takes a deep breath, whispers a silent prayer, and fires. The boy drops to the ground, the grenade rolling harmlessly away. Chris lowers his rifle, his hands trembling. He knows he made the right decision, but the weight of it is crushing. Later, the Marines patrol cautiously through the narrow, debris-strewn streets, their senses heightened by the ever-present threat of ambush. Chris remains on the rooftop, his sniper rifle steady in his hands, scanning the area for any sign of danger. He takes down a sniper with a single, precise shot. The Marines below proceed cautiously, reassured that Chris has their backs. Moments later, a car appears at the end of the street, speeding toward the Marines. Chris locks onto the driver through his scope, assessing the situation. The car shows no sign of stopping, and the urgency in its approach suggests danger. Chris takes a deep breath, steadies his aim, and fires. The bullet strikes the driver, who slumps over the wheel. The car slows to a stop, but the tension isn't over. Moments later, the vehicle erupts in a massive explosion, sending a shockwave through the area. The driver had been a suicide bomber, and Chris's quick decision saved countless lives. Not long after, Chris spots another insurgent planning an explosive device along the road. His focus sharpens as he lines up the shot. The insurgent is working quickly, trying to set the bomb before the Marines get too close. Chris exhales slowly and pulls the trigger. The insurgent drops instantly, neutralized before he can complete his deadly task. The Marines continue their patrol, but Chris remains on high alert, scanning the area for additional threats. The next morning, Chris is summoned to his commanding officer's office. He's informed that some have questioned the legitimacy of his earlier actions, particularly the killing of the boy. They claim the child was only carrying a Quran, not a grenade. Chris remains steadfast, insisting that he saw the grenade and acted to protect his team. The accusation stings, leaving Chris frustrated and isolated. He channels his emotions into his work, returning to his post on the rooftop. Later, while on watch, Chris receives a call from Taya. Her voice carries a mix of worry and sadness as she shares troubling news. His younger brother, Jeff, has been deployed to Iraq. The revelation fills Chris with dread. He knows firsthand the dangers of the battlefield and worries about Jeff's safety. Despite his concern, he doesn't have the luxury of dwelling on it. His mission demands his full attention, and he resolves to protect his team with even greater determination. As a new group of Marines enters a building to search for insurgents, one of them is shot. Chris decides to leave his rooftop post and join them on the ground. He feels a deep sense of responsibility for his fellow soldiers and is determined to ensure they all make it home to their families. Inside the building, they find a family of 3, a father, mother, and young son. The father is visibly terrified and begs the Marines for protection, explaining that they live in constant fear of the terrorists who control the area. He offers to provide information about their target, a brutal insurgent known as the Butcher, but only if the Americans guarantee his family's safety and promise them asylum in the United States. Chris listens intently and assures the man that they will protect him and his family. He reports the situation to his superiors, who agree to place the family under U.S. Army protection. As the convoy is on its way to the family, their vehicle is ambushed by enemy fire. A sniper has targeted them, forcing Chris and the Marines to take cover. Chaos ensues as bullets rain down, and Chris quickly identifies the source of the attack. He realizes that their target, the Butcher, has learned about the Iraqi man's cooperation with them. Tragically, the Butcher retaliates in the most brutal way possible. In front of a small crowd from the community, he captures the Iraqi man and his family. Chris and the Marines watch helplessly from their position as the Butcher tortures the man's young son, eventually killing him. The father is executed next, a grim warning to anyone who dares to assist the Americans. Chris is devastated by the scene unfolding before him. The Marines are outnumbered, and the presence of the elite Iraqi sniper makes it impossible for them to intervene without incurring heavy losses. The next day, the Marines receive orders to move to an undisclosed location for a high-priority mission. The atmosphere is tense, with everyone on edge after the losses they've endured. Elsewhere, the elite Iraqi sniper, known for his deadly precision, receives intelligence about the Marines' movements. Without hesitation, he gathers his gear and rushes to his post, determined to intercept the Americans. This sniper has built a reputation as a ghost, always striking from the shadows and leaving devastation in his wake. As the Marines make their way through the streets and armored vehicles, the convoy suddenly comes under heavy fire. Bullets ricochet off the metal, and the soldiers quickly return fire, engaging the insurgents in a fierce firefight. Amid the chaos, Chris and his partner are tasked with securing a rooftop to provide overwatch. They carefully ascend the building, scanning for threats. Suddenly, Chris's partner is struck, collapsing to the ground with a grievous wound. Chris frantically calls for medical assistance, his voice barely steady as he tries to save his friend. He then lifts his wounded comrade, carrying him down the stairs and through the chaos to their vehicle. The team speeds to a nearby medical facility, where doctors work tirelessly to stabilize the Marine. Later, they get news that the Marine's eye has been irreparably damaged, and he will never serve again. The weight of the injury hits Chris hard, a grim reminder of the constant danger they face. The following day, the Marines regroup and head back to the insurgents' location, determined to retaliate. They enter a building, clearing it floor by floor to ensure no enemies are hiding inside. Suddenly, an ambush erupts. Gunfire fills the air as insurgents attack from multiple directions. In the chaos, one of Chris's closest friends, Burns, is killed. Chris is visibly shaken, the loss cutting deep. Burns was more than a fellow Marine, he was a brother in arms, someone Chris trusted with his life. Weeks later, Chris visits his injured partner in the hospital. The sight of his friend, now a shadow of his former self, strengthens Chris's resolve. He vows to bring the Iraqi sniper to justice, dead or alive. The following day, Dandridge, a fellow Marine, delivers devastating news. Chris's partner has died on the operating table. The loss is another blow, but Chris knows he must press on. Later, during his patrol, Chris spots a terrorist preparing to bomb the Marines on the ground. With a single, precise shot, Chris neutralizes the threat, once again protecting his team. Later, intelligence comes in pinpointing the location of the Iraqi sniper. The Marines gear up for a high-stakes mission, determined to eliminate the deadly threat. Chris and his team infiltrate the building where the sniper is believed to operate. They clear each floor, ensuring no one is hiding, before ascending to the rooftop. Meanwhile, the Iraqi sniper, already in position, takes down one of the Marines. Chris quickly adjusts his position, scanning the rooftops through his scope. After a tense moment, he spots the sniper. Calculating the distance, Chris steadies himself, takes a deep breath, and fires. The bullet travels across the gap and strikes the sniper, who collapses instantly. Relief washes over Chris and his team as they realize the immediate threat has been neutralized. Their victory is short-lived, as insurgents launch a counterattack. The Marines hold their ground, engaging in a fierce firefight. Despite being outnumbered, they manage to fend off the attackers. A helicopter is dispatched to extract them, and as the team prepares to leave, Chris takes a moment to call Taya. He tells her he's ready to come home for good, wanting to leave the war behind and focus on his family. As they retreat, a massive sandstorm engulfs the area, reducing visibility to near zero. The storm makes navigation nearly impossible, and Chris is momentarily separated from his team. Despite the disorienting conditions, he manages to find his way back to the vehicle just in time. A few days later, Chris calls Taya from a bar. She is confused as to why he hasn't come home yet. Chris opens up, admitting that he's struggling with his mental health. The losses he's endured and the weight of survivor's guilt have taken a toll on him. He explains that he needed time to process everything before facing his family. Taya reassures him, promising to support him through his struggles. Weeks later, Chris and Taya host a gathering with friends and family. As Chris watches his son play with their dog, his hypervigilance kicks in. Misinterpreting the playful interaction as a threat, Chris jumps up, ready to protect his son. Taya intervenes, stopping him before he reacts further. The incident is a wake-up call for Taya, who realizes the depth of Chris's trauma. She takes him to a therapist, where Chris opens up about his survivor's guilt and the overwhelming responsibility he feels for the Marines who died under his watch. Determined to heal, Chris begins focusing on his family. He makes an effort to be present in his children's lives, playing with them and supporting Taya. Slowly but surely, Chris starts to rebuild his life, finding solace in the love and stability of his family. However, the scars of war remain, a constant reminder of the sacrifices he made and the burden he continues to carry. Make sure to like and subscribe for more notifications. Until next time. See you soon.